Good morning. If you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you could recite the four-way test. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? If Jennifer Hazing could come up, I'd like to welcome you for the invocation.
Rotarians and guests, please bow your heads if you wish to join me in prayer. Gracious God, we give thanks for your beloved Jesus Christ, in whom you have shared the beauty and pain of human life. As we honor World Health Day this week, we ask that you look with compassion upon all here today and strengthen all people, especially those in healthcare throughout the community and elsewhere around the world, to be your instruments of healing by the power of the Holy Spirit. Open us to your healing power, O God. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank our greeters today. There's a great crowd, and I know we have some guests. So if you are a guest of a Rotarian, could the Rotarian and the guests please stand and be recognized? Can you help me in recognizing them? I also know we have some junior Rotarians with us. Could the junior Rotarians, as I call your names, could you please stand? Emily, is it Riedemann from Roosevelt? Nima Musa from Jefferson, and Abraham Myers from Washington. Welcome. We do have a little bit of Rotary business, so if you do have we have 3 new inductions. Could I invite Jason Hairbolt, Matt Paulson, and Stephen Williamson to come up to the front, please? And first up, we're going to have Jason Hairbolt.
Thank you, Eric. It is my great privilege to introduce new member Barry Sackett. Barry is the managing partner of Trust Law Counsel at Gooseman Law Firm. He helps business leaders find solutions and engage in business opportunities by fostering trust and promoting action. Barry is a part owner of Gooseman Law Firm. Barry's business and legal expertise stems from years as a business owner, chief financial officer, in-house counsel, assistant county attorney, and legal consultant. His practice areas include development, mergers and acquisitions, real estate, tax, estate planning, probate, and mediations. Barry is curious and fluid in everything he does. He loves seeing visions become a reality, and this is the reason he became an attorney. Not to mention just a personal story, I met Barry a number of years ago. Barry and I met at the Kettle Moraine State Forest in Wisconsin. We were both slogging through a 100-mile endurance race, and we ended up running next to each other for about 40 miles. And I tell you what, as painful as that was, him and I struck up a serious conversation on probably 100 different topics. So with that, I'd like to introduce Barry Sackett.
Well, thank you, Jason, very much. I'm a little stiff getting up the stairs because we ran 51 miles yesterday, which was on Dakota News to bring awareness to 988 suicide prevention line with Lance Smith out of Harrisburg. So, but thank you, Jason, for continuing to encourage me on our morning runs to join Rotary. I'd been a Rotarian out in Southern California a number of years ago, and my mother was a longtime Rotarian, so I have a lot of familiarity with the organization and all the great works it's done over the years, and very excited to be part of such a vibrant group, a growing group, because I know, in some areas it's harder to get that kind of participation, but that's what makes Sioux Falls so great. We're here to help each other and to keep the vibrancy happening with all of the good things that we have. We treasure those and we continue to pass them on. A little about myself. My wife is a teacher at Harrisburg North Middle School. Have a 12 and a 14-year-old in the Harrisburg system that keep us pretty busy. 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a snake. So they also, I end up being the caretaker of all the animals. But it's a lucky thing for me. So thank you to everybody that's already reached out your hand and said hello. I'm anxious to get to know everybody else. And please, if I can be of any assistance on anything, I keep my hands in a lot of buckets in order to help people out. And that's what I do for a living. And I'm blessed to have that opportunity. So thank you very much for welcoming me in. And I will pass it on to the next. Thank you.
Matt, can you step up and introduce Jeremy?
Thank you, President-elect Eric and fellow Rotarians. It is my pleasure to introduce you all today to Jeremy Keckler. He is a Senior Vice President and Business Banking Manager at the First National Bank in Sioux Falls. He is a graduate of USD with a business finance degree. He is also a member of the board for Affordable Housing Solutions. Jeremy's been married to his wife, Jolene, for 20 years, and they have 2 teenage sons, Colin and Seth. His hobbies include hunting, fishing, and cooking. An interesting fact about Jeremy is he has a weekly card game night with some friends every Monday, and they've been meeting, that group's been meeting for 25 consecutive years, so it's a long time to do anything. Please welcome Jeremy Keckler. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for the warm introduction. As Matt said, I'm a lifelong Sioux Falls resident. This is the only community I've ever known, and at no point in my life did I ever want to live anywhere else. This is home. Raised by 2 educators here in Sioux Falls who have a commitment to Sioux Falls as well. A little bit more about me. I've been blessed to work for the same organization for my entire career, almost 20 or a little over 23 years. It's an organization whose values, principles, and guiding decision-making, I think, aligns really well with Rotary. So I'm already excited about some of those similarities. You know, some folks have a lot of background with Rotary. I do not. I'll be the first to admit I don't know a ton about Rotary, but when I look out amongst the room, I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar names, both from the business community and the nonprofit world. Tremendous amount of trust with everybody that's in the room, and I look forward to learning more about Rotary and beginning my engagement. So thank you for having me. Thank you for accepting me.
And last up, Nate, can you step up and introduce Stephen? Switch that around.
Fellow Rotarians, Eric, my name is Stephen Williamson, Director of the Foundation at Southeast Technical College, and it is my honor and privilege to introduce you today to my good friend of many, many years, Mr. Nate Daly. As many of you might know Nate, he works for the Sioux Falls Area Community Foundation, one of the most important organizations here in Sioux Falls, and for many, many, many years he was over at Augustana. Anybody who knows Nate knows that he's probably the most unpositive person in the world, never has a smile on his face, never has a good story to share. But the biggest superpower that Nate has, outside of his wonderful wife and 3 kids, is he might be the best fisherman in the state of South Dakota. So if you want to talk fishing, he's a wonderful person to talk about that. But it is my honor and privilege to introduce you to my good friend again, Nate Daly.
Good afternoon. It's truly an honor to be here. Thank you so much for inducting me into this very distinguished group. It is truly an honor. And yes, I do love fishing. And if you ever want to talk fishing or if you have any tips, I'm always willing to learn. But it is truly, I'm humbled to be here, and I look forward to serving and being a member of the Rotary Club. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
right. I think at this point, if we could invite President Cindy, could you join us and our two panelists up on the stage? And then I'll just handle a little bit extra Rotary business left, which is we are very, very close to selling out and meeting our goal of 300 tickets for the raffle. So thank you, Bob, back there we made it? Great. Bob just indicated we have made our goal. So thank you very much to the Rotarians who contributed to that for 5610. And really a heartfelt thank you to everyone that participated there. It's wonderful for this club to be associated with the 5610 and to support Rotary Foundation around the world and both here at home. So with that, Cindy, and looks like both Paul and David have reached the stage. For those of you that don't know the two panelists, let me just make a quick introduction. Paul Hanson is the president of Sanford Health in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. In his role, he is responsible for the largest tertiary facility in the Dakotas and oversight of Sanford network facilities, including both hospitals and clinics, both across South Dakota, western Minnesota, and northwest Iowa. Dave Flicek, president and CEO of Avera McKinnon Hospital and University Health Center, and chief administrative officer of Avera Medical Group. He was recently named the chief operating officer of Avera Health and will be transitioning into that role this summer. Flicek has been with Avera for 27 years. Thank you very much for both of you for joining us today. And President Cindy, I'll turn it over to you.
Eric, thank you so much. Well, happy Monday, everybody. It's fun to get to spend some time with two of our community's leaders talking about healthcare. The topic is healthcare on the horizon, so this might be a little risky to start off with, but I'm going to give both of you a broad brush and an open canvas. We'll start with you, Dave. 2-3 minutes. What is the state of 2023 healthcare in Sioux Falls?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me today. Paul and I did rock, scissors, paper, and I won, so I'm going first. So just let you know. So yeah. So what's on the horizon for healthcare? I would say, at least in the Sioux Falls region, Sioux Falls area, I think healthcare is bullish, quite frankly. You have, over the next 10 years, around 70,000 people moving to town. It's almost the size of Rapid City moving to Sioux Falls in the next 10 years. And so they do have, a 400-bed hospital in Rapid City. And so I do think both Paul and I, the health systems here in town, are going to have to add more beds and more capacity to take care of patients in this community. So I see it as very bullish, quite frankly. I feel good about it. I think obviously we're going to touch on workforce a little bit. That'll be a challenge for us. But I think overall for Avera, we feel very strong about the local market. I think this last few years have been trying with COVID and another COVID, and I would call it a walkout COVID, where a lot of employees walked out on us. They were kind of tired. But I would say even through all of that, we opened up a specialty hospital, an addiction care center, freestanding ER, the Human Performance Center. So we feel good about our growth in Sioux Falls, and we continue to make our investments to meet our community needs. So I'm pretty bullish on Sioux Falls and healthcare in general.
That's tremendous. Paul, give us your take on the state of 2023 healthcare in Sioux Falls.
Well, from the Sanford perspective, I agree with Dave. I think that we have a community that we've been blessed with, and there are a tremendous amount of resources that we have here outside of healthcare that allow us to be able to recruit new businesses, and more people are moving into the community of Sioux Falls. We too, I'm not going to try to restate what Dave has already said, but we too have seen some significant growth in service areas. We've taken a specific and a very strategic approach to enhancing some of the service lines that we already have, and in fact are looking at, an example might be orthopedics, where we look at that as an opportunity for us to not necessarily create an inpatient opportunity for us, it is an outpatient opportunity for us. And so as you look at our main campus, you look at some of the investments that we've made, many of them are outpatient based, or they're improving some things that we already have in place for our inpatient service lines. But certainly, clearly in healthcare, we're seeing more and more being moved to the outpatient setting, and investments are going to be made there, and we have a great community to invest in.
I love it. Dave, I'll bring it back to you. You've already alluded to this. Sioux Falls is seeing tremendous population growth. I think population growth is in some way, shape, or form part of our programming almost every week. How is that kind of growth population directly affecting healthcare, and what is Avera doing now to plan for that growth?
Yeah, so I would say healthcare, the COVID took a lot out of our healthcare workforce, and I would say going forward, we probably need to be a little more nimble in healthcare. I also think the opportunity to, reinvent how we do healthcare is probably where we need to be. Unless you're in healthcare, you really don't know all the different professions that are in healthcare, from technical to professional. There's surge techs and pharmacy techs and behavioral health techs and patient care techs and echo techs. There's just a lot of individuals that are on the technical side. On top of that, you have pharmacists and doctors and nurses. So there's just a lot of professional and technical that we need to recruit and retain. I'd also tell you, in the healthcare sector, I would just say in general across the nation, it's almost a little like the Civil War and Reconstruction. We are reconstructing our business model because we have to. People did walk out on us. Nurses retired, and patient care techs said, I'd rather go work at a retail organization than help patients get in the nursing home. So just reinventing who we are is really important as we go forward at Avera. And I think whether it's virtual nursing or robots that can deliver meals or take out the trash, we really are going to have to reconstruct how we do business. And I would say we're in a very good spot compared to the rest of the nation. I mean, I think Kaiser Permanente lost $4.4 billion. I don't know how you make it after that. Mass General lost $2.3 billion in healthcare. And part of it was, a year ago, we were just ending COVID, if you can believe it. We were going to be up here wearing masks today, but we decided not to. We didn't know
A little sensitive.
if we'd be accepted or not. But I would tell you, when you have the industry as a whole, we had some $68 million of traveler costs. I usually spend $15 million. And I can tell you during that time, Medicare and Medicaid and Wellmark didn't pay me anything more for my business. We had to figure out our cost structure, basically, and that's where we're at today. And I'd say both health systems in town have done a good job. I think we're in a really good spot now. I think we're in the reconstruction phase, but it's going to take a lot to get us out of it.
Reinvention and reconstruction are not small tasks.
Right. And we tend to have, our tradition hampers progress, so we have 100 years of tradition too, so it takes some time.
Paul, is Sanford taking similar steps, and is there anything Sanford is approaching perhaps differently than what Dave indicated Avera is doing?
I could echo what Dave was saying. I think that operationally speaking, what we've looked at within Sioux Falls is we've really gone back and looked at what is our core service lines, what are our core services. We've examined, obviously our medical model. Is it the right medical model? Is it the most cost effective? All while measuring our clinical outcomes to make sure that we're achieving the clinical outcomes that you expect, that we expect, from our product. And the last year or two, certainly has had its challenges, no question. Everything that Dave said you could just echo it over at Sanford as well too. But the uniqueness of what we've been able to do internally, and what I'm really, really proud of, is the fact that we did not take our eye off the ball of what is the most important aspect of delivering care, and that's really our staff, putting our staff back in the right place with the right technology. And over the course of these last 2 years, it's been measured, and we achieved a 5-star rating in CMS, and I believe Avera's got the same 5-star rating from CMS as well. We achieved a 5-star rating from Vizient, another external resource that we use to measure our outcomes. We received an A rating from Leapfrog on patient safety. Those are the things that we focused on, during COVID, post-COVID, to reinvest and repurpose some of our people and our resources to make sure that we're delivering a real high product. Because it's never happened before. We've actually achieved those 3 or 4 distinctions in the same year. And we also achieved our 5th magnet designation which is a special recognition, 2 and 4 are nursing staff. There are only 40 magnet designated facilities in the U.S., and we're one of the 40. So we are really, really proud of that. Now, it doesn't mean that, our need for temporary agency help is any less than what Avera has seen. We typically, right now, even today, we have about 80 temporary agency people that are working on our campus. 35 of those 80 are nurses. So, we have that, issue. But again, we have been so blessed that over the years, between the two organizations, we've made significant investments in our universities. And our universities, I don't know how many are here that represent the universities, but we have a great relationship with every one of our universities we have within this state. And they've been incredibly, I would say they've been available to us to address the significant needs that we had. And some of them even come back with, we'll help you develop this program. We're going to help fund this, halfway. So that partnership that we have with the universities has been significant and has put us in a much better position than our counterparts, in the East and West Coast.
Wow, and congratulations to you both on those incredible distinguishing honors.
Thanks.
As we know, our population is growing, which is meaning that the number of people who need care is growing, and it takes people to care for people. We could absolutely spend our entire 35 minutes talking about workforce and healthcare, but we should give you an opportunity to touch on it a little bit and really from that solution lens. But before we talk about what you're doing, Paul, just how real are the workforce issues at your facility? How many job openings do you have at the hospital system-wide? Give us some framework of what workforce issues means.
Yeah. This workforce issue goes from entry-level roles to physicians. Presently, we have about 1,000 jobs that are open within the Sioux Falls market. Now, when I say Sioux Falls market, don't just think Sioux Falls Metro. When I say Sioux Falls market, I mean all of our Sanford footprint within the state of South Dakota, Southwest Minnesota, Northwest Iowa. That's what we're responsible for. So that's my responsibility within the Sanford footprint, which represents about 1/3 of the total. So when you look at the needs that we have and the FTEs that we would require, it's about 1,000. But if you look at those 1,000 people, it's like Dave said, how many of them are cath lab techs, surge techs, rad techs? Now we're going to start getting into some language that you're going to say, what's that again? But it is significant enough where we know that we can't change it overnight. There's not a quick fix. You can't turn a key and have this flood of these types of people come back in and serve your organization. So we yet again have gone back to our partnerships and our relationships with the universities and the tech schools to make some investments. And the beauty about Sioux Falls is that this last investment we made with STI was Avera, was us, the state, the city. It was a combination of everybody doing what was right, knowing that we weren't going to be able to fix it overnight, but it was going to be coming in with the next 12 to 18 months. So I think we're going to see a slow curve to come back. But also I think that as we look at our operations, we're going to look at can we do things differently and maybe not need some of the higher ends, but repurpose them someplace else, within the organization. So it's a work in progress right now, and I think it's pretty much happening everywhere within healthcare.
Dave, give us some sense of the scope of that and maybe talk about how these workforce challenges has revved up the way Avera is innovating.
Yeah, so I would say we have about 1,200 openings system-wide, and that's South Dakota, Northwest Iowa, Minnesota, so that's kind of very similar numbers here. I would say that we have the same challenge, just from a pure number perspective. In 10 years, I'll need 400 more doctors in Sioux Falls. And we can track our specialties by, you need so many orthopods per 20,000 population. So you can kind of scientifically figure out what you need from a workforce perspective. So that's buildings and outpatient centers that you got to figure out. So that's your new opportunity to reinvent and to try to do business differently, whether it's through virtual or AI is going to have a big play in healthcare. Healthcare is a lot of data sorting, physician is looking at temperature and blood pressure and medicines, and all that data can really now probably help a physician going forward. I think chemotherapy, someone said, with a medical oncologist, they have to read like 10,000 journals a year to keep up with scientific advancement of oncology. It's so fastly moving. So how does AI help you? So I think AI might come down the line here as well, being built into our software programs. That's how it'll maybe help us reinvent. I do think, though, to piggyback off Paul's partnerships with our state schools and our tech schools, that is a beauty of South Dakota. We know everybody. We can say, hey, we're short surge techs or we're short something, and they can then pretty quickly and nimbly help us with that, and I think that's been really good as well. But I would tell you, AI needs to get introduced into college and high school, because by the time they go through their educational institution, if they're not used to it, it's hard to then change them. So I do think we have to help our educational institutions to figure out, how does AI help? What is the new technologies that we're working on? Medical school does have 100 years of tradition, so progress is hard to change, and so we got to help them with some of that going forward. So it's real. I would say I think at Avera, we started with our $17 an hour really helped us, but that made a community impact, because then daycares and everybody else had to match it. But we were having issues with housekeepers and food service workers. We had to figure, and CNAs in our nursing homes were really struggling to even get a meal, up to the room. So that really helped us quite a bit. So I think I can stop there.
But that balance between innovation, efficiencies, and the reality that it takes people to care for people, that's a balance that I assume both institutions have conversations about regularly.
Yeah, it is a people business too, and I tell you, the untapped market really is our new American population that are refugees that are coming into town. 50% of the elementary schools are going to be diverse. We need to figure that out, and our systems just are not built for that yet. Our Avera Academy, where we have 24 students going through various departments and then going to STI. So far in the 3 classes we've had, 90% of those students are in healthcare, and so it's really paying off. But that is a huge population that will be our future workforce, so we're going to have to figure out how to continue to work with that population going forward.
Well, let's talk about workforce from the supply side. I'll tee this up. 2 years ago, the South Dakota Board of Regents commissioned a study to determine if higher education course offerings matched statewide needs. To no one's surprise, there was a big gap in the number of graduates versus the workforce needed in healthcare. So Dave, I'll stay with you as I was taking in the most recent, the March issue of the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce's Chamber News. When asked about this topic, because there was an article that spoke to this, and then Paul will tap into another piece of that article here in a moment. Dave, you were quoted saying the future is being nimble, which you've used that word already today, and thinking differently. Can you elaborate on what you meant by that? And are there other examples that you haven't had a chance to speak to where you are being nimble and thinking differently at Avera? And also, how are you teaching others to think nimbly and think differently at Avera?
Yeah, it's a difficult task, let's put it that way. We have a lot of traditions that it's hard to get through. And I would tell you, being nimble right now, as an example, at Avera McKenna Hospital, I probably have 6 individuals or 7 to 8 where I have a one-on-one nursing sitting in the room with the patient. They could be concerns for falling, concerns for ripping an IV out. And so that's a labor that I have to sit in that room and make sure that they don't fall out of their bed or something doesn't happen. So we have a new program that it will be virtual nursing. Basically, it's AI tested. There's quadrants on the camera, so we'll have a camera watching the at-risk fall patients. And if they move out of a quadrant, someone centrally will be notified that Mr. Flicek's moving, you need to get in there and help them. versus having 8 individuals sitting in 8 different rooms. And so that's a culture change for nursing, culture change for a lot of folks. You're moving a lot. Will patients be okay with us monitoring them so that they, their loved one won't fall? We have a lot of education that we have to do. And that's just an example. You think it's a pretty easy change, but with 1,000 nurses, you're now trying to figure out, okay, this is good for you, this is what we're doing. It gets complicated. That's where I think being nimble with the school systems, and Paul did this with CRNAs here, was able to work with the USD to get more CRNAs because it was short. That's the beauty of, to me, nimble, that we actually had a state school willing to do that with us. So I think that's just an example, I think, of being nimble. We know everybody, we can make some phone calls, here's our need, and we can go from there.
Yeah. Paul, I saw you nodding along. Anything you want to speak to with what you're hearing Dave share?
I think, from my perspective, when you think about the CRNA program is a great example. When you think about going out and actively recruiting somebody to come into your organization and the signing bonuses that you're spending, to bring them in. And the signing bonuses might be for a 3-year or a 5-year commitment, but they're significant. And I'd rather have us reinvest those dollars back in our university and grow our own. From your staff that has worked their way up through, that maybe had an interest in maybe going into, a CRNA program or a RAD program or a lab program, where you can grow your own if you just know that they have an interest in pursuing that type of educational opportunity. And so we've kind of doubled down on some of those scholarship opportunities that we have within our own, with our own ranks within Sanford. And so I think, again, it won't happen overnight. But I think 3 to 5 years, growing your own, investing in your own people, and then using the resources that we've gotten, that we've been given to us, that we have to nurture and make better. We have that opportunity. So,
another topic or a component of that Chamber News article in March highlighted the creation of the Health Sciences Clinical Simulation Center. That's at the old Zeal building on the Southeast Tech campus. I think you were kind of teasing that out a little bit. So Avera, Sanford, Forward Sioux Falls, collectively, the number I understand was a donation of $5.6 million collectively to fund the simulation center, and that another $4.5 million was appropriated by the South Dakota legislature. First of all, my numbers, or do I have the right numbers? Talk about the purpose of the simulation center. Is it doing what you envisioned it to do? And why did it make sense to make such a sizable investment?
Well, again, I think from my perspective, Southeast Tech is a great institution, and they're meeting our needs. They're meeting the needs in the future, and we had an opportunity to partner up with a lot of supporters of this to double the size of certain classes. I mean, to go back in and for not a lot of money. I mean, you think about what yes, it's a lot of money, but in the grand scale of things, to make that type of investment, to have that much of an impact where you can double the sizes of rad tech programs, surge tech programs, cardiac cath tech programs. It is amazing, how we've been able to do that and the speed in which we're able to do that. I think the other thing is, as you look at the job opportunities for these people, hopefully we'll hire 100% of them, but maybe some of them are going to go, elsewhere. Hopefully they'll go within the footprint of, our service area, Southwest Minnesota, Northwest Iowa, and South Dakota. Is it doing, what it's supposed to be doing? It is. We try to provide a realistic approach to, their education. It is a setup, the structure of their classrooms, if you will, mimic what we have within our operations so that, they feel comfortable being within an operation like that, going through an educational course that aligns really well with what we do internally, operationally, with our education and orientation process. So, again, I'm bullish on that as well too.
Dave, anything you want to speak to with the Simulation Center, and from your perspective, is it doing what you hoped that investment would do?
Yeah, I think it started with the numbers. I think they had like 400 kids apply and only 60 slots. Yeah. And we're sitting there going, wow, we can double these classes and double the workforce. And that's really what I think got Paul and I both excited. So, but it's another example of partnerships and nimbleness, but you have individuals in the community bringing us together, the mayor, Paul, I, Forward Sioux Falls, coming together, say, we think we have a bet here for you guys that you should bet on. And we're bullish on it, giving the cost of education. STI has a great program of associate nursing and then all the technical spots. So it was just one of those, it was the right investment to double the size of a lot of these classes to get people into healthcare. So it was a pretty easy investment for us. It seems complicated, but again, in South Dakota, you get us all in a room, we know each other, let's kind of work this out, put a deal together, and I think it was true public-private sector here getting a deal done, and it was really good. It'll be good for all of us.
I think they add one thing too. I think that sometimes within the community you see the competition comes out a little bit because, you know, it does. It's there and it exists, and I love it. And I know he does too. I just want to make sure at the end of the day I'm ahead of Dave.
Game on, buddy.
Yeah, see? There you go. There you go.
Anytime.
Yeah, just don't run so fast. I'll be able to catch you. Right?
I can't outrun him.
You cannot run me. You cannot run me. We've tried that before. Yeah. But I think the thing that's so unique is, and it really, it was kind of my orientation 10 years ago, is that, you know, you pick up a phone, you know, and you know, Dave has done that from day one, where we pick up the phone and say, hey, I got a problem. And, you know, how do we fix this collectively together? You know, and, you know, as long as it doesn't cross anything that's illegal for us to talk about, you know, it's amazing how fast we can get the right people in the room at the right time and make a decision. But again, I think that's just something that's so true about the community of Sioux Falls.
And Avera and Sanford often partner together to meet community needs. The two of you co-chaired the last Ford Sioux Falls campaign and did so very successfully. Bill Gasson and Bob Sutton, they are co-chairing the Active Generations Community Appeals campaign along with Miles Beacom. That kicks off this afternoon. How else are the two, and you spoke to it a little bit, but maybe even offer some tangible examples that come alongside how the two of you are collaborating behind the scenes when it comes to responding to social determinants of health?
Well, the link would be one. We came together with the county, the city, Sanford, and Avera, and we actually fund the link. So there's another in the Bloodmobiles one where we come together. Center of Family Medicine is we jointly own together. I would say also during COVID was very tenuous for both of us in that we had full hospitals and staffing, and I think Paul and I and Paulette Davidson and from out in Rapid City talked every day. How you doing? How you holding up? And there was a time when Sioux City was going to send all their patients up to us, which they never usually do. So we had to, Paul and I just got together saying, look, we have our beds for our community. You're going to have to send to where you normally send. And that was to the benefit of our community to have beds for patients who are very ill. And we just said, hey, you take one, I'll take one if they do it, as opposed to both of us. But we did both call the CEOs down there saying, look, you don't normally send to us. You should send them to your referring partners. And I think we concluded that was the best for our community. So we do that a lot. I think we co-chaired Forward Sioux Falls, but we'll come together from time to time, have a little hallway conversation on what we need to do to support this community, to help this community, all boats rise, basically.
Paul, from your lens, talk a little bit about experiences or examples that really have resonated with you when it comes to responding to social determinants of health in Sioux Falls and in your footprint.
Yeah, Dave took the top four, of course.
He took the easy ones, didn't he?
Yeah. No, I think that, you know, for me, when you look at behavioral health is like, you know, the number one community address need that we have, and it's been that way for at least the 3 community health needs assessments that we've done. And so I think being able to partner, you know, with the resources we have locally within the community, whether it be the link, whether it be looking at partnering up with Augustana College as it relates to enhancing the behavioral health therapy program, embedding a behavioral health therapist in each of our clinics to try to tie that back, and knowing that it's the right thing to do. And then frankly, if there's an inpatient need, it goes over to Avera. So there's that respect and that trust that we have within each other in our service lines, and it goes beyond that. When you look at, for example, you may have to rebuild a certain service line occasionally for whatever reason. There's a relationship where the physicians that are across the street that if your patients do go there, you trust them. And so I think that's the respect and the trust that we have within each other and our teams have, and I think that's a good thing for us moving forward.
Yeah, we're tremendously fortunate as a community to have this kind of just mindset and collaboration up on the stage. So thank you both for that.
Yeah, I think one last thing is Newsweek just put out the top hospitals in the United States. It said world's best, and this is United States. So take it for what it's worth, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that our marketing department will have fun with that later on. But it's good to see. Did I just knock off? I did.
Getting excited, buddy.
Well, I'll tell you why. As you look at that list, the world best United States Newsweek. If you need it, just look at my LinkedIn. I got it on. But it's got Sanford was able to be listed there in the top 55, which means of course we were 55, and Avera was in the top 170, which means they're 170. Now, the scores themselves are all within like 0.0021% of each other, but it just doesn't matter. We were there first. So thoughts on that, Dave? Or,
We are a little disadvantaged. The Heart Hospital has a separate org structure. Otherwise, we'd be like top 40, but that's okay.
Oh my God, here we go.
Okay,
and this is my life with Dave Flicek.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, let's stay with you. Realizing that
Hey,
you...
before you go,
my
I
gosh,
think
of course,
behavioral health, though, I want to get on behavioral health, is that we do have a psychiatric residency, and we do train psychiatrists. But I tell you, you hire them, they're full within the first 10 days. So behavioral health is probably an underlying disease on just about 80% of the population on diabetes or weight or whatever. So you can never have enough of them is the issue. We opened up our 724 urgent care, and I think the first day we had 30 acute psychosis patients in that in the urgent care. That's how fast it filled up. And if you talk to our police department, they just, they say, God bless you guys, because most cities just leave them on the street. They just don't do anything with them. We at least have the capabilities between outpatient and inpatient to take care of them. So it's a community need, but I think it's a community need in almost everybody's community need, and we're trying our best to try to keep up with it, that's all.
Sure. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Paul, I'll bring it to you. Now, realizing you aren't necessarily the one who's been spending time in Minnesota these past months, I imagine the potential merger with Fairview in Minnesota is a topic of conversation around the table in meetings. If that merger comes to fruition, what kind of impact will that have on healthcare delivery in Sioux Falls? Does it create new efficiencies, added specialties? Does it divide attention? How does it impact us?
Yeah, for those of you in the room who've gone through a merger and acquisition or watched one, I mean, if you've done that, you've seen one, right? And I think that as it relates to any type of merger discussions, acquisition discussions, however you want to describe it, it's minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. Things can change so rapidly. And you're right. Operationally, that is not in my purview. That is it's a corporate function, a corporate responsibility. I will say that I trust our corporate leadership. I'm on TV, and I really mean it. So I trust our corporate leadership. I trust the resources that we have that we're using for doing the due diligence. Yeah. And as far as I'm concerned, as we look at this, you look at the advantages that a quaternary facility could have in the Minneapolis area. You look at maybe the research component to a university. There's so many dynamics that are going on. Again, things could change just like that. And what do? I focus on South Dakota, Southwest Minnesota, and Northwest Iowa. That's my job responsibility. That's what I do for Sanford Health, and that's what I'm going to continue to do. If there is a merger or not a merger, my focus is on Sioux Falls and the Sioux Falls market.
Makes sense. I imagine, Avera, Dave, has been having conversations about what if as well when it comes to Fairview. What kind of conversations has your team had about how a potential merger, Sanford potentially merging with Fairview, how it might affect Avera in any way?
Yeah, so we really haven't talked that much about it, but I do hope you get Gopher tickets or something. I mean, get something out of it. So,
Oh man, we're on TV.
hey, if you're going to Minneapolis, you might as well go to the Gopher game or something. So, you know, I think good for Sanford. Hopefully they can pull this off. A lot of health systems are getting larger in the marketplace. We just don't have that sense. We're getting growth opportunities within our contiguous service area is kind of where we focus on. So we have no desire to go 2 states over at this point in time. So we believe there's enough growth in this marketplace to take care of us and our patients. So good luck to them. Hope it works out.
You know that Minnesota's just a state over, right?
Yeah, well, it's almost like 2 states.
Okay, all right.
It's a state and then another city.
Yeah, okay, all right. I got you.
We wish you well.
Well, Dave, there are changes happening at Avera too, and technically in your bio indicated as well for just a little bit longer, you're wearing 2 hats at Avera these days. And
Maybe 3 or 4, but that's
7,
okay.
however many. What can you tell us about the new individual who is your replacement at Avera McKinnon? And I'm also particularly curious at how will this person's role possibly look differently than the role looked when you were in it. Tell us about this new person and go from there.
Yep, so this summer will become the Chief Operating Officer for Avera Health. I've been doing it part-time here for a little bit. We've hired Dr. Ron Place, who has amazing credentials. He's from Huron. His wife is from Yankton. He's a 3-star general, and he ran the entire military health care for the military, a $50 billion business. And so you say, why does he want to come back to Sioux Falls? Well, obviously he wants to come back to Sioux Falls because he has a son that teaches at Harrisburg and a grandchild, so he wanted to get back to the Midwest. So we're excited about having him join the team. He will be starting in May, and really his role will really be McKinnon Hospital region. And McKinnon Hospital, like Paul, has hospitals in Gregory and Worthington and Estherville. So it's a region. We call it a regional CEO basically. And so we're looking forward to having him start. So I can give up the 24/7 gig that I have. Which, by the way, I have a lot of respect for people like Paul or anyone who runs these places. I mean, there isn't a Saturday or a Sunday or a night we get a phone call that, hey, Dave, someone coming down on meth through an exam table on a nurse and broke her leg today, or hey, we just delivered a baby in a parking lot. I mean, you're constantly, it's just a 24/7 constant brotherhood, I would tell you. Tornado hit, he asked if he could help. That's but that was like at 2 a.m. at night. So I do think that's what Ron's job will be. He'll be stepping into the day-to-day operations out of Avera McKinnon. All the clinical operations then, hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, home care will report up through me, and then I will report to Bob, basically. So I'll deal with clinical integration of all those different service lines, and then I'll be dealing with a lot of growth and acquisitions as well.
That's super. We're going to have time for a couple of questions, so if Angie or whomever wants to grab the microphone, I'll ask a quick one, and then we can do that, and then I get to ask the last question. But while the microphone's getting going, talk a little bit about long-term care and what those conversations are like at each of your facilities.
Wow.
Complicated.
Very hard.
Yeah.
I will say that, thank goodness for our last legislative session.
Yep.
And the investments that have been made in long-term care. They will make a significant impact on operations. I think I said this at another public meeting that I was really concerned about some of the nursing home closings that we were seeing in the state of South Dakota as well as other states. because as we look at managing, our inpatient care, oftentimes, we can move a patient from an inpatient setting to a long-term care setting, and it's better for everybody. And when that bed's not available on the long-term care side, it creates some backup, and all of a sudden you don't have an inpatient bed available because you're waiting to place somebody in a long-term care bed. And it goes into a lot more than that, but it's just, I am so thankful. And I'm looking over here, I see Tony V out in the audience right now, and I just think about, what was done this last legislative session. That increase is it's gonna make a significant impact on us, and I'm so thankful for that. Dave?
Yeah, I don't know what else to add. It's just a complicated, hard business in taking care of patients in nursing homes. There's very few able-bodied eating people, so you're feeding people, bathing people. It's a hard business to have staff in, and so I do want to thank the legislator for helping us. In Minnesota, it's a little easier in that it's cost-based reimbursement, so whatever your costs are, you get paid from the state. In South Dakota, we made a big step forward here, but it's still a complicated business. You're in Gettysburg or some of these small towns, just attracting workforce is complicated. So that's same conversation. We have 1,000 nursing home beds. There's a couple towns where you have 2 nursing homes that are half-staffed and half full, should they come together and have 1 full nursing home. Those are hard conversations to have, but it's probably what needs to happen going forward.
When you think about their expenses, on a nursing home side, in our day, it might have been 65 to 70% of their revenue was tied into their salary expenses, and now it might be 90, 95%. It doesn't give any wiggle room at all, and then you're asking that staff for so much, and you really can't give them anything else, and so it's a very hard business to be in.
We'll open it up for questions. Jack's got the microphone. Questions are for Rotarians.
My name is Jack Marsh. I'm a member of Sioux Falls Downtown Rotary. My question is about workforce. If I did my proper addition, 2,300 vacancies between the 2 systems just in the Sioux Falls metro area or the Sioux Falls market. How does that square with the fact that you had to have a lot of layoffs the last couple of years? How can you have 2,300 vacancies and yet I don't know what the total number of layoffs were between the 2 systems, but can you help us understand that, please?
Yeah, I think post-COVID, obviously, we had some cost restructuring to do, but we had principles of we had to make sure the bedsides were taken care of, and so most of the positions were non-technical, more administratively is where they were at. Because at the same time, we're both hiring nurses and, patient care techs. So it was really around the peripheral. It's unfortunate healthcare, really the business model, they're taking away our service, valets, and they're taking away any service that we've had left. The margins are just so tight that you have to take, you have to do everything possible to preserve the nurses at the bedside or anybody having to do with patient care. And so it was really outside of that is what we had to restructure. And there is some research, at least in my areas, that you hang on to when things are good, but if they're not bringing in research dollars, can you really be in it anymore? A community-based hospital making 2 to 4% margin just takes your creative thinking out when you have less of a margin, and you just aren't willing to fund research like you should.
Jack, I thought about that a little bit. Sometimes when numbers are reported, like especially in our case at Sanford, sometimes we'll report a number that'll be more of an enterprise number instead of a local market, and that causes some confusion in terms of the layoffs, or you're going to hire 745 nurses in Sioux Falls. I think there's an article that came out and said that Sanford's going to hire 740. Well, it was yes and no. I mean, Sanford as an enterprise is going to hire a little over 700 nurses from foreign countries, to come back in, foreign nurses to come back in to help us. But in the local market, we're going to do 40. So that's a big delta between, what's being reported and how people are reading things to say, well, is that really true? So, 8 to 10 years ago, when I started, there were some opportunities that obviously every time you have somebody new coming in, you see some opportunities, just like somebody will find the opportunities when I leave in like 7 to 10 years. So thank you for catching that. But I think that what we really started doing was looking at, okay, when somebody leaves, can you use turnover as a friend, and that was 8 to 10 years ago, right? Because if you can repurpose somebody or not necessarily use some of those down hours, if you will, then all of a sudden you realign yourself where when you run into a situation like we didn't have the layoffs that we could have had we not done that and used that 7 to 8 years prior to a COVID situation to not hit certain benchmarks. Every year when we look at our productivity reports, we reset ourselves to that new benchmark, and a lot of organizations, don't necessarily reset their benchmark to that. We do, Our span of control at Sanford, when I started here 3 years ago, we had the hospital had administrative team, the network had administrative team, and the clinic had administrative team. Now we have one. It's not three, But we don't advertise that. Why? Why would we? Because what we want to do is make sure that the resources that we can save go back to, building new service lines, enhancing new service lines, bringing new technology, et cetera. So we need to do a better job of really talking about what we do, because I know that Avera has done a lot, with their investments within the community and outside, and we have too, but we just need to kind of get it out there more so people understand where the investments are being made.
That is a fair point, though. We did repurpose a lot of folks into jobs that were open, Jack. So, that happened a lot, honestly. We just had to repurpose where we're at. Yep. So I agree with that.
One quick question, quick answers, and then I'm going to ask my final question.
Joe Batchelor with downtown Sioux Falls. It's been fun to witness the little bit of the competitive spirit between you two, and healthcare is a little bit different than private industry, though. I'm just wondering if you could provide some examples of how's Sanford better because of Avera, and how's Avera better because of Sanford, and how does Sioux Falls benefit as a result of that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that we can. Just evidence the Newsweek discussion we kind of joked around about, but having two organizations of our size, when you think about $4.5 billion worth of healthcare in Sioux Falls, it's a major business within this community, And I love the idea that we've got, that competition that's between the two of us, because it elevates everybody's game, And then you look at your core service lines, how can we do it differently and how can we do it better? There are some things that I'm, maybe looking at them that they do some things pretty well, a couple things, I guess, but Avera's investment in virtual care, and they've done it a long time. They did a great job. Mr. Sanford has been incredibly gracious to us and is giving us some dollars to make some investments in virtual care, which will help our medical model down the road. But I'm looking at what they're doing, to see if, what the benchmark is. But we have two different models, and we'll see which one benefits, and then we go from there. We'll take the best from both.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I think green's a better color, so I'll start there. But I would say, I think two strong health systems in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Most of us hire all Mayo doctors, and I need a strong Sanford. They need a strong Avera, just for teaching and education and research. There are communities that they're just sole community hospitals, and they don't have the level of services that we have because they don't have to. And we're sitting there going, well, they have it, so we better have it, and we better have it better. And then they add something, they add it better, I better add it even better. And so I think it just pushes us both back and forth to have world-class healthcare here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So I think we lift each other up, and it's okay. In general, I have a lot more service lines that are better than his. But we can talk offline on that. So,
Well, today's program is Healthcare on the Horizon. Bookend our time together. Each of you take 45, 60 seconds. What is on the horizon that this group, as community leaders, would be particularly interested in knowing about? Dave, I'm going to let you go first, and then Paul, you get to talk last.
Yeah, I think we are going to continue to grow. AI will probably help us a great deal on the horizon. We have many more building projects happening. Rural healthcare is our core competency. So I mean, we just built a hospital in Gregory, South Dakota, $35 million investment in a rural community that you just don't usually see. I'm just telling you. And so I would say on the horizon, it really is, I think we'll have 400 more doctors here in 10 years, and I think we'll be assisted by AI going forward. I think healthcare is only going to get clinically stronger, which means we're all going to live older, and then what happens is we crash in the nursing home pretty sick at that point in time. So how are we going to help that whole throughput of home care? And we might be taking care of more people at home through telemedicine, quite frankly, than even having them come into us. That's kind of where I see it at. Will you be using the home as the hospital?
That is the horizon. Paul, final words.
Well, we'll have 401 physicians, in the next 10 years or so. But I think that I think Dave said it all. I think technology is going to impact our medical models. I think the investments we make in technology is going to be significant. I think about our relationship with Dakota State and what that could mean for cybersecurity opportunities. And there's just so many things that we can align ourselves with within the community. So we're bullish on healthcare within the community of Sioux Falls and the surrounding area. And we've got a group of elected officials who have been very supportive of us, and I'm really appreciative of that. So that will drive some of the things within healthcare as well too.
Well, I think Sioux Falls is better and special because we have the two of you leading in the ways that you are. So thank you for that, and thank you both for being here today. Please help me thank them.
I too will echo that. Thank you very much. Cindy, thank you for your time and moderating. Paul and Dave, thank you. Competition's great for all industry, all business. The friendly banter is fun, so thanks for making it enjoyable for a presentation. But the class that both your healthcare organizations bring to our community is truly second to none, so thank you more for that. The next program that we have is coming up on April 10th. It's Bands, Broadway, and Beyond Touring Events in Sioux Falls. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.